Hello, it's Anna and Sophie from Soundyard here. We make Chris Skinner's Countryside podcast, and we've got something very exciting to share with you. We have a new service that's being launched, and it's called Spoken Stories.
Spoken Stories is all about recording the voices and memories of your loved ones in outstanding quality, so they can be enjoyed for generations to come. For example, you know the story that Grandma tells that everyone in the family has heard before. Well, Spoken Stories is about getting those stories down and preserving them for your family history. Spoken Stories is about gifting someone the time to capture these personalities and unique voices.
We record your loved ones' tales, whether it's their whole life story so far or something more specific like a life-changing event. It is a gorgeous experience, and what you're left with is a beautiful monologue that really captures the essence of that person.
Think of it like an audio portrait, and take a listen to a snippet of this one from Diane's spoken story, recorded in her beautiful garden.
I was born in 1951 at Newmarket, and unfortunately I didn't see Mum for a year. I was looked after by a lovely nurse called Diane, my name, because my mum had TB when I was born. And so my mother never worked because with her problem with her, lungs, she had to go and have it sort of pumped up every so often. She used to do a lot of dressmaking, so she always made our clothes years ago. But yeah, she was a lovely mum, yeah, and Dad as well, yeah. That's very nice childhood I had, yeah, very nice. Yeah. I got married February the 16th, 1974. The weather was gorgeous. I ended up having putting a big sort of T-shirt under my wedding dress I didn't need. I had a lovely one of those transparent umbrellas in case it rained, and it was just a beautiful day. I think I'm always sort of quite cheerful. I mean, if I go down the Luke and deliver some eggs to somebody, I'll meet somebody and chat, and then Paul say, "Where have you been?" I said, "I've been chatting to people." That's just my way. That's just how I am. We've always lived here. We had this built in 1974. They put the footings down in February and we moved in the August. Years ago, I used to go around the village on a bike, and when I had Ian, he'd sit on the back. We live in a lovely area. We've got lovely neighbours. They help us all out, which you all do with neighbours, and that's very, very nice. And as I said to Paul, I'm hoping we can keep this place on until, well, I don't want to move from here until I go out in a brown box. I hope that's not too soon.
If you'd like more information about Spoken Stories and to take advantage of our special introductory offer, you can head to www.soundyard.org/spoken stories.
And keep listening after this episode with Chris, and you'll hear another example of a spoken story. It's a view of the world from a 6-year-old.
Chris Skinner's Countryside Podcast.
We're in the farm vehicle with Chris Skinner once again. Welcome to the Countryside Podcast. And Rat is wriggling as well. He wants to get out. We've just done a circuit of your pond here, your big lake, and had no trace of a cormorant. And then we drive away and
a very large ash tree right in front of us, and we've got a sentinel up there drying his wings. And it's a cormorant. And everybody's kind of shocked to know that they come inland. There are two look-alike species, Matthew. One's a shag and one's a cormorant, and a jackdaw has just landed next to the cormorant, and it looks like a speck, and the cormorant's about 100 metres in front of us. Tall, black coloured bird. If we were closer, the plumage has got a green hue to it as well. Long beak and a white patch just under the chin there, and it's preening. And what it's done, it's been fishing in that lake, which is stuffed with rudd and a food trout as well in there. And I've been watching them on previous mornings, and when we just arrived, obviously the lake was empty. There had been a little grebe there and a mute swan as well. They've all gone, and a disgruntled heron has left as well. And this cormorant is threatening the jackdaw. If the jackdaw gets too close, it's stretching its neck out.
There it goes.
And says, "You come too close and I'll eat you."
He's got a very long beak,
A
hasn't he?
long beak with a hook on the end, which they use for stopping their prey slipping away, whether it's a small fish or even a frog. They swallow them whole, but they arrange the fish in a way that they slide down their throat, so they go down head first and then all the scales afterwards. And what it's doing is, well, they're basically water birds. They're never oceanic, either shags or cormorants. Shag you'll see all round the British coasts, and they are often accompanied by cormorants, but shags are far more common. There's about 4 shags to 1 cormorant, to give you an idea of the population. Shag's about 30 inches from beak to tip of tail, and a cormorant 36 inches. So that bird we're looking at is a yard long in old money.
I think we're quite well off for cormorants in this area. We visit each week in Norfolk here, and on the Norfolk Broads there are lots of cormorants, and
Yes.
Rockland Broad just up the road here.
Yes.
But also on the beach, and watching them perching on the breakwaters and
Yes.
swimming out to sea.
Yes, they do. They often swim. They look a bit like the Loch Ness Monster, because most of the body is under the water when they're in the water. They're really unusual birds. Very, very good swimmers. Their feet are right at the back of their body. And most birds have a little hind toe which faces backwards. It's pretty useless. It's just used for holding on to branches. And with the cormorant, the toe, rather like woodpecker's toe, is migrated round, and it's become webbed. So instead of normal 2 webs for many waterfowl, cormorants have 3 webbed feet. 3 webbed toes, I should say, and that makes them really powerful swimmers. They're like sort of rockets under the water, and I've been watching them nearly every morning, and one isn't particularly successful by itself fishing, but then 2 or 3 others join, and they go down under the water, and after a few seconds the air comes out of the wings, and you'll see this torpedo trail of bubbles. That jackdaw's not having it. It's not happy.
He keeps circling around the cormorant. The cormorant's neck goes round like it's a 360-degree spring.
And yes, well, that's the thing about cormorants. They're really agile when they're in the water. As I said, they're like torpedoes, and they confuse the fish, which there's shoals in my large pond or small lake. It's 1,000 square metres of water behind us, and once the bubbles come out of the bird's plumage, you'll see these little trail of bubbles. It's really visible, as though the water's boiling, and then the fish start jumping out of the top, and the cormorants come up from underneath and catch their prey, and they'll eat their prey when they're on the surface. If they're a little bit worried, and I've been past once or twice not knowing they're there in the lake, you just see this head sticking out of the water. They're really unusual. The cormorant is an old Saxon word, and it really means sea crow. So it's a derivation of that, and they're really quite common inland, but on the coast they'll eat a different set of prey. Obviously, we don't have the freshwater fish. Things like flounders, they'll eat those. Flatfish, they'll eat small eels as well. And when I was a child, I'd go to Cromer in the rock pools and try and catch blennies, which are small fish, very, very slippery, and that's one of their favourite prey, and they're very good at catching them.
They've got one major weakness in their armoury, though. They're not very good at drying off, are they?
No, because the feathers, unusual for birds that spend a lot of their life in water, they're not waterproof. The rest of the body is, so they have this characteristic sort of pose where they all along the shoreline, even on the edge of my lake here, and anywhere dry. So it's unusual because I've never seen a cormorant in a tree before. It's perched up there because the webbed feet aren't very good at hanging on.
He hasn't moved since we arrived.
No, he's just waiting to dry off, and then he'll come back and have another fishing session.
So he's going to move his wings out, is he?
Yes, yeah. And Jay's just arrived right in front of us, and he's clocked the cormorant, and I think the cormorant's going to be mobbed even more fairly soon. But he's preening now, so part of their regime is feeding and swimming and then drying off. And we call it, when they're drying off, they sort of hang about, and we call it a loafing spot. I got accused of that at school. So the head teacher would sort of see me with my head out of the window, Skinner, you're loafing. And basically that's what they're doing. You can see it's preening now and getting its waterproof feathers really coated, apart from those wings. So there we are, a close encounter with a cormorant to start this morning's podcast off. Wow, that's quite something. I've never seen that before. So I'm learning as much as everybody else, and how the countryside's changed. But they're powerful flyers. When they just take off from water and the wings have all the sort of water in them, they're quite cumbersome at getting off the water surface, and they use their paddle feet, which look as though somebody's wearing flippers in the water to make you a better swimmer. They use those to propel them across the top of the water, and then once they're airborne, they're quite powerful flyers, actually. So there we are. We'll just start the truck and see how close we can get.
It's the cormorant, and it's a bird that looks almost like a leftover from the dinosaur era.
Well, I think the oldest fossil record of a bird in the world comes from Hungary, and it's a cormorant look-alike, and it's 100 million years old. There we are. Look at that.
We're getting the coloration now.
Almost underneath. I'm shocked. I would...
Do you think he's super glued up there? He's not moving, is he?
No, and I promise it's not a puppet with strings on it. It's a real live cormorant, and it's an adult. It's pale underneath, and we should just be able to see the white patch under the chin. We're almost underneath it, and a fearsome 3-inch, 75mm long bill with a little hook on the end. How extraordinary.
It's a great way to start the podcast. And last week it was the same, wasn't it? We saw bees that Chris had never spotted before on the farm, and we're going to have an answer about that later.
Yes, we will. We've had a question on that. Look at that beak, and it's preening itself. We are underneath a cormorant. Now, what they're notorious for is their droppings, which are white and often coat cliffs, sides and rocks in a coat of white. It's called guano. That's good fertiliser for the garden.
Better get my bucket and spade.
Wow.
The ducks at High Ash Farm going in to roost for an evening. Hey everyone, it's Matthew here, and if you've been enjoying our countryside podcasts, we've got a small favour to ask.
Yes, Matthew. What we're going to do is to ask for a small donation to help run the podcast, and any surplus goes for conservation at High Ash Farm here. And so it's really important. We both love to keep the podcast going, and that duck agrees with me, I think.
Well, it's straightforward to donate. You can make a one-off donation or set up a small monthly contribution, and the address is highashfarm.com/podcast.
We're hugely grateful for any support. It means we can keep sharing the stories of the countryside, which I love doing each week, but it's that small amount of costs we need to cover. So thank you very much in advance.
We're out of the car now, and it's a grey morning, still relatively mild, but just an autumnal nip starting to creep in.
Yes, we've had a tiny amount of rain here, right on the east coast in Norfolk, a total of 4 millimetres. So the ground is still rock hard, dry and dusty under our feet. We're on the edge of one of the largest areas of woodland on High Ash Farm called Fox's Grove, good 30-acre chunk of mature woodland. And last week we had a sort of surprise encounter with bees, and during the course of the summer we've done various visits on insects on the farm, and there's one I'm always itching to show you. Because I know how to treat a boy and give you a good time, Matthew, and so you're going to be spoilt this morning.
I'm actually dreading this now.
You're dreading. Okay, I think it would have been advisable to put a hat on, but we'll let you. Oh, you have got one in your pocket. I think that's probably that's better. Just health and safety. And I think it was last week or the week before we found an old woodpecker's hole, and there was some black bees in it. Which I love seeing. It's just natural insect life, and there's one really large insect which is quite scarce now, and it's Britain's largest wasp, and it's called the hornet. So just come here a few steps forward.
Is this the same hornet that can sting quite seriously?
Yes, and just up above our head.
Oh, rat's making friends.
Rat's making a friend. There's a little hole in the branch up there, just here, just where that large branch comes off. It's about 12-15 feet up. Can you see the white patch in there?
Yes, I can. Yeah, and I can see movement there.
You can see movement. So I brought binoculars because, to be safe, it's just 12 feet above our head. I'll just focus them in. And we're nearly there. Yes. If I pass the binoculars over to you, it's a bit cloudy and dark this side, but the hole, the entrance hole's at the top of the nest, and it's a large paper-like structure there.
It's like walnut whip.
Yes, it is. Yeah. So, yes. So, and there's aeration holes at the bottom of the nest, and that's because they generate quite a lot of heat inside the nest, and the heat goes upwards, so there's vents which are really cleverly made. Can you see the ventilation holes?
The bubbles, yeah.
Yes, so
And
we've
it's a
got...
sort of creamy colour, isn't it?
Yes, that's all chewed up paper, and it's the work of one large female that survived last winter, and a lot of our pollinators, and hornets are quite important pollinators, the numbers are quite low this year because of the wet, cold spring, which tended to kill quite a lot of them. And so that's why pollinators are quite in short supply, including butterflies this year. It's that cold spring. So credit to that queen. She survived, probably hibernated under some bark somewhere out on the farm, and just survived all that cold and that wet over the cold months last year. And so it's a real credit to her. She survived.
And they're big, aren't they?
They are big. So they're over an inch long, inch and a half long. A queen hornet is quite a fearsome looking insect, but nevertheless they're hugely popular. And I've come to appreciate them and to love them and to sort of respect them. And I've become kind of equal to them because we're kind of taking over the planet. And everybody sort of says, not in my back garden, particularly for hornets. And I've learnt to stand back and appreciate just how valuable they are. So one hornet equals Chris Skinner, and I've come to that kind of equation in life, that I've learnt to respect nature and what it does for us. They do it all for free. They're pollinators. They're hugely important. So I'll put a little sign here all about hornets. It's right beside one of the permissive walks on the farm.
And there's a loving close-up of a hornet there, look, about 6 inches across.
Yes. So all those hornets you can see flying in and out of the nest are females, but they're sterile. And at this time of the year, the workers, those sterile female workers, are feeding the next generation, which will survive over the winter. And all those workers, including the old queen, will shortly die, and the nest won't be used again, or very unlikely to be used. So that's why I respect them. And then quite soon the female queens will leave the nest together with drones, which are also quite large, larger than the normal worker hornets, and they mate. The drones then die as well, so it's quite a sad story for them, and just the queen, the fertilised queens, will survive over the winter, and they will be flying out, feeding on the remnants of the ivy and any sort of nectar that they can have. They have a problem, hornets. When we look at the picture in front of us, there's the head, the thorax, and then the abdomen. And the thorax and the abdomen is not much thicker than a human hair. So they can't eat solid food.
Because it won't make its way through.
Exactly.
So they have to chew.
They will only really imbibe sort of sugary, nectary type food. But they will catch other insects like I've seen them catching butterflies, any unaware flies. They will catch them and they take them back to their young and feed the young the solid food, because the young's still in a larval state, and then the young can exude a sort of sticky secretion and feed back to the adults. My children never fed me, I will tell you, but it's kind of reverse. And but they do feed themselves. And I've watched a hornet in the orchard. Some Victoria plums fell on the ground, and the hornet kind of burrowed a hole out into the Victoria plum laying on the ground. And I wasn't paying much attention, but I was picking some other apples and plums in the orchard, and I came back and there was 4 or 5 blue bottle flies had gone into the hole, and the hornet came down and killed the whole lot of them. And 4 laid there dead, and it took the 5th one away. And so that's how, formidable they are. But they're not aggressive like common wasps, and they're unlikely to sting. And that old motto comes back to saying, doesn't it? Don't stir up a hornet's nest, because the sting is pretty powerful.
But we're close enough. But they don't mind us here. No. But if we got too much closer, I should imagine they'd investigate.
Yes, they'd probably investigate. And I have been close in the past, putting a camera up against a hornet's nest, and I've been bumped. They usually sort of fly into you. They don't sting you necessarily, but if you have a bump from a hornet, it's time to get out of the way. And you certainly don't kill one near the nest, because they'll release a pheromone as they die, and that sets the whole nest off. Once the others detect that, they attack en masse. But hornet stings are rare, and that's why I appreciate them. I love to have them here.
They do nothing but good, really.
No, and it's a highlight of my year to get you up to, because it makes everybody smile, and they say, Paul Matthew's been put close to a hornet's nest. But you can see they're not even interested in us in the slightest.
No, we're only 12, 15 feet away, aren't we?
Yes, they are. They're carrying on their life cycle, and that'll soon be over, because most of the inhabitants in there, apart from the virgin queens, which they are at the moment, will all die. And so that life cycle continues on over the winter. So we hope it's not such a wet and miserable winter and early spring, because they hibernate. They've got these long antennae, and they fold those right back on their body. I've actually come across hibernating hornets, and I always cover them back up and say, good luck, hope you get through the winter. So when you talk to a hornet, you know you've hit rock bottom, I can tell you.
So the Hornets here on High Ash Farm, and Rat has done a... Where is he?
That's true.
He's done a runner.
He's disappeared, his usual trick.
Do you think he's eloped with that other dog he spotted?
Well, he did. He's got a girlfriend. She's a bit shaggy, to be honest, and but he seems to have disappeared.
He likes the more unkempt female.
Presumably, yes, but we'll give him a whistle. I don't think he has. He's shown no interest in the opposite sex at all, but... So we'll give him a little call and see if he arrives. Ratty! Unless, of course, he's in the car, because that wouldn't surprise me. He's put himself in there. Is the door open? Yeah, the door's open. I don't know where he is.
Rat has been recovered now, as you can hear, and now he's seen a German Shepherd, which he wants to do battle with. We've come away from the woodland, and we're on the edge of one of the fields here on High Ash, and one or two horses out there as well. And Chris, what are we looking at?
Well, we've hit autumn officially, Matthew, and there are a few flowers with autumn in their name, so I thought we should just celebrate at least one of them. There's one called Autumn Squill, one called Autumn Ladies' Tresses, and this one in front of us, well, if you imagine dandelions first in the spring, those bright, cheery yellow flowers, which are actually excellent for pollination, and this is a dandelion look-alike. And instead of coming into flower early spring like dandelions, it comes into flower now. It's got autumn in its name, and it's called Autumn Hawkbit.
Autumn Hawkbit.
Yes. Sorry about the dog, everybody. Oh dear. Because it's a bit cloudy this morning, when I drove up here yesterday, the end of this horse pasture was just bright yellow. There are thousands of them. It's right by one of the permissive walks here at High Ash Farm. We're really close to the Roman town car park here at Caistus and Edmund by Stoke Holy Cross Road. And they're dotted everywhere. And they just open up when the sun comes out and close up again when the sun goes in. Days are getting shorter, but this is their main flowering period, hence autumn hawkbit. So dandelion-like plants, same flower shape as well. Here's one, and it's just half open, and even the leaves, if I follow this down, it looks exactly like a dandelion's leaf. A little bit smaller, but deeply serrated, and it looks as though we are looking at a dandelion, but I promise we're not. So, autumn hawkbit. So, just to celebrate the season, you have to have flowers, and just look up this little verge. There are hundreds of them, most of them still closed up.
So when if the sun came out and there was a bit of warmth, they would open.
Within 30 minutes, this would be blindingly yellow. They're beautiful little plants, and again, you can see how common they are down here. Look.
Very deep egg yolk yellow in the middle.
Yes, it is. Yeah, they're very good. And again, because at High Ash Farm we try and provide pollen for the pollinators most of the seasons, the ivy's just finishing, and this is a kind of complement to the ivy for the bees that we've discovered, for lots of other insects. Not so good for moths because they close up tight, and this is an unopened one here, look, and no sort of bee or moth. Another one here, tiny little, all the petals are pulled together, so they really celebrate the sun, rather like the dandelion and of course the daisy as well. Daisy-like flowers, except these are yellow, and of course the day's eye is the sun itself, so there we are. But the foliage, the horses absolutely love it. They'll graze, they eat dandelion leaves, and they'll also eat the autumn hawkbit leaves, and you can see them leaving the grass and actually going around and seeking out this rich green foliage to graze. And we're right next to a horse pasture here, tight grazed grassland, and it's absolutely covered in them at this time of the year. So there we are, new one for you, autumn hawkbit.
Huge pile of emails here. We love getting them on the Countryside podcast, and thank you so much for everyone that takes the trouble. Questions galore here, Chris. We'll start with one from Northumberland, Joseph and Catherine. We came across this growth on what seemed to be the flower end of a wild rise in our hedge. However, it doesn't look like a spent rose or the beginning of a rose hip. Can you tell us what it is, please?
Yes.
Photograph attached.
There is, and it's a perfect picture of the rose leaves there and this rather strange growth. Do you know who Puck was?
Midsummer Night's Dream?
Yes. They're absolutely brilliant. Well done. I think you've answered half the question. His other name is Robin Goodfellow. Right. So what we're looking at, Robin's pincushion, and it grows on roses. All the species are wild rose. And this particular one, we've stopped by one of the large hedges on the farm, and there, in the top of the hedge, is a robin's pincushion. Same colour.
Spherical.
Yeah, it looks reddish, but the reddish colour's nothing to do with the colour of a robin's breast, so that's where it gets a bit confusing. It's about Robin Goodfellow, and he was meant to be very deft at sewing, and so he was kind of an impish character, I suppose, a knave, I think is the correct way to call him. He would go and do odd things in hedges and make a robin's pincushion, and but it's a growth caused by a gall wasp, and it's called the Beduga gall wasp. Diptoporus rosea is the Latin name of it, and it's an unusual name. That don't come from Norfolk Beduga. That's a Persian name, I think, and it means brought by the wind, and it can just kind of appear anywhere. But actually, it's the handiwork of this little gall wasp, and it's absolutely intriguing. When you look inside a robin's pincushion, that wonderful picture that had been sent, if you've got a very sharp knife and cut it, in half, you would see there'd be up to 50 little caterpillar grubs inside it, and they're all females. It's really, really odd, because there's a bacteria inside the robin's pincushion, which is why it's a little bit confusing and related to Puck, who's full of mischievous sort of doings. They're all females, and the bacteria causes half the males to turn into females. So if you actually gave the caterpillars inside the robin's pincushion a little bit of antibiotics, it would go back to 50-50 male and female. So it's really odd. So when the females reproduce, because nobody does antibiotics in pincushions, they're asexual, so they reproduce asexually, and they are clones of themselves because there's no males to mate with. So it's really odd. It's the strangest little community. There's all sorts of bacteria and all sorts of things, but pincushions used to be gathered and dried and used excuse me everybody, I'm laughing and I shouldn't, used for a cure for baldness. So sorry about this.
Have you got many more of these?
Yes, we'll go and gather some.
Yes,
but
I think I might need it. But they're less than an inch across. They're like a ball, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
And they've got quite a pretty colour to
yes,
them.
the same colour as a robin's redbreast, if you like, but nothing to do with the bird at all.
It's Shakespeare.
It's Shakespeare. That's where the nickname Robin's pincushion comes from, caused by the Beduga gall wasp. Well done. Brilliant picture.
And Chris, thank you for bringing me to see one here in the flesh as well, 8 foot up in that hedge.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Here's one from Tina James. The bees you saw coming out of the rabbit holes last week, are they called brassy mining bees? They are 5 millimetres in size, she asks. Just to also say thanks for your brilliant podcasts. Ah, Tina, that's nice, isn't it? So, what do you think?
Thank you very much, Tina. Well, we've got a question coming up in a few seconds with a picture of the bees that we saw. So, I've had them identified. They're not the brassy bees that you mentioned there, but we'll get to the question. Matthew's furiously going through all the pile of questions, and I think it's this one. Let's have a little look.
Yeah.
Christine Wakeford.
Christine Wakeford, who lives very nearby. My daughter Emily has dedicated her Norwich garden to wildlife and sent me the attached video of an ivy bee returning to its home in her garden. It was in a south-facing bank, and that sounds familiar, doesn't it? After feasting on the nearby ivy flowers.
Yes, and that's what we've got at the farm here. It's the first time I've ever seen them, and we got a brilliant picture now coming up when Matthew scrolls through. There we are. I'll detach it.
Oh, yes, there we are,
There
right
it
on
is.
the ivy flowers.
Yes, and it does look like a honeybee, Apis melliflua, which is about 15 millimetres long, and the bees we saw last week are up to 10 millimetres long. And so they're newly arrived in the UK. They're called ivy bees, Caletus hedera. So hedera is part of the name of the Latin name of ivy. It's called Hedera helix, and there's ivy all the way down this hedge here. And so we see them more in the autumn. They're really late hatching and mating and hibernating solitary bees. So that's why you see them on the ivy. It's their favourite plant food, and they also love, and I saw them about a month ago for the first time, not knowing what they were. I didn't have time to stop. They're on Himalayan balsam on the farm. So it's orange hair on the thorax, and the body, the abdomen, is kind of black and orange. It's really clearly defined and really beautiful little bees. And we had over 1,000 of them. And I said, I've not come across them before. And I said I wasn't embarrassed because I think there's more wildlife here that I don't know anything about than what I do know. So there we are.
It's encouraging there are new things being discovered.
Yes.
And Christine is a great student of wildlife because she says, I'm in the Hornets, just up from you in the River Tass. The River Tass is the valley that we're in now. You often mention it. We run a thriving biodiversity group, the Hornet Nature Matters, and make contact with other villagers and farmers up and down the valley. At the last count, we had over 70 households signed up to Garden for Wildlife.
Yes, well, thank you, Christine, and thank you for the brilliant picture, because a picture says 1,000 words.
Tim Rice has sent a message. I thought you'd like to see what I think is a convolvulus hawk moth spending its day on the side of a chicken run. I was amazed to see how perfectly it blends in with his background. I always look forward to our weekly walks around High Ash Farm. So Tim insists he's not the famous one, although we'd like to think he probably
Well, of
is.
course we would, yes. Yeah. But
What have we got here?
Look at this for a picture of a camouflaged moth. They're about 2.5 to 3 inches long.
that's the moth.
Caterpillar is enormous, and it's hibernating on the wood on his chicken run, and it's absolutely perfect. You just wouldn't know it's there. It could be anything. It just looks like the grain of the wood has carried on regardless.
That's lovely.
That's proper camouflage, that is.
Yeah, camo, as we call it. Dick Johnson says, talking about controlling grey squirrels, it's been a subject recently, hasn't it? The damage the squirrels do to some of the trees here on High Ash. Pine martins are being reintroduced in some parts of the country to hunt down squirrels. Would that be something worth looking into?
Yes, I'm always interested in natural control because I think that's the best way forwards than man keep putting his oar in the whole time. But we have got goshawks here, but the goshawks have been rather overwhelmed this year with the amount of grey squirrels. They seem to have come through the winter quite well, and so they're a little bit overwhelmed, so the squirrels have ended up doing quite a lot of extra damage this year. But thank you very much. A good suggestion.
Damien in West Wales, I could have sworn I saw a kingfisher on the river the other day. Lovely. During the summer, my mum was sat out on the patio. A merlin swooped down onto the gate out of nowhere, and I think it was back in the springtime, a goldcrest hopped through my crabapple, flashed his quiff and was gone. That's amazing. This season's robin is very shy. My garden borders a river and woods, and it can get pretty wild. P.S. Can Chris tell us about rocking out to Hendrix in a previous life?
Oh, wow. It was in the very late 1960s. Jimi Hendrix, no less, came to Norwich. There was not room for him in any of the large venues. He performed in a tiny cellar in the middle of the Norwich called the Orford Cellar, and I was there at the front, less than 3 feet away from Jimi Hendrix. An amazing experience. I was on a first date. There was 150 people in a room 25 feet by 25 feet, and my girlfriend passed out. and she had to be handed over the top of everybody up the steps, and I had to take her home. So I had 10 minutes of Jimi Hendrix and the rest of the night explaining to her father what had happened.
Chris, as you can tell, made it out in one piece. Just. And let's finish off with Julian, who enjoys walking around High Ash. He says, I had a lovely long day. It was unusually quiet bird watching wise, but we did notice more than the usual amount of bird boxes. There were a lot occupied by bees. That's nice to see. One in, one out. Do you know roughly how many you have? What sort of percentage are regularly used? And the photograph I sent here intrigues us. Was it just a trial for using it? It is left low down on a large sycamore tree, I think quite close to the farm entrance. And there's a photograph. Yeah, that is near the entrance, I think, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And a very large Labrador has just walked past, and it's gone off with its tail between its legs, being pursued by Rat. No, Rat's good boy. He's stayed pretty close to us.
It's pouring with rain, by the way.
It has just started raining, so we've 640 nest boxes of various sizes and shapes, many of which are for solitary bees, and of course getting close to 100 nest boxes for house sparrows. The particular one that you saw was for a nest of bumblebees, which was in the nest box, and I had put a new building up, a new workshop for the farm, and we moved the box to the bottom of the tree, so it's only moved about 10 feet, and the bumblebees, they were buff-tailed bumblebees, carried on using the box. It's only 2 feet above ground level, so successful story.
Well done, Julian, and thanks for the question. Thanks for telling us about your rock and roll youth as well, Chris,
Oh,
and
yes.
we'll look forward to some more tales. Oh, wet paws all over me now.
Sorry, I apologise.
Not you, Rat.
I know, yes.
Email address, chris@countrysidepodcast.co.uk. It's terrific to hear from so many of you, and I'm already looking forward to next week.
Excellent. I'll look forward to seeing you again then, God willing, but brilliant. We just love sharing the Norfolk countryside with our wonderful podcast listeners.
This is a Soundyard production. Music is by Tom Harris.
Hello, it's Anna and Sophie from Soundyard here. Our new service, Spoken Stories, is an incredible experience where we record the stories and voice of your loved one, which you can then hold on to forever.
It makes for an incredible gift, and anyone can make one. Take a listen to this. It beautifully captures the thoughts and feelings of life from a 6-year-old's perspective.
I'm 6 years old and I love running around. I can run very, very fast, but I'm even faster on my bike. That's why I love biking. It makes me feel energetic. And also I bike loads of places. I like doing sports like dodgeball. The people that are in charge in the world, well, I think that there should be no one in charge at all. So everyone's in charge. So there's no person that's in charge. So everyone is a bit more free. That's what I think. Well, what I try to change at the moment is global warming. It's when us humans litter, destroy the planet and all its nature. That's global warming. It makes me feel sad. And also, if us humans keep doing that, it could destroy the whole planet Earth and then all of the human beings will be destroyed. I try to stop global warming, and also in my coat pocket I have a bit of Kit Kat litter I found on the floor once. I love the planet more than anything. Grown-ups should be stopping global warming, because grown-ups are more powerful than kids. But if kids can be more powerful than grown-ups, kids and grown-ups can work together and do it. Kids should be able to do the same things as grown-ups. They should have more rights. Well, I love myself because that I believe in a lot of things. That's what I love about myself. I like being a kid, but because when I'm a grown up, I'm gonna have my own kids because that's what I want. And also, I'm a bit worried to have kids, and I'm still gonna be a kid for like a long time. So I'm glad that's actually gonna happen. I'm glad I'm gonna stay a kid for a long time. I'm gonna have kids because I want to know what it feels like to be a parent. I'm gonna be a good parent.
Isn't that just gorgeous? If you'd like to find out more about recording a spoken story of your own, or you'd like to buy this as a present for someone, take a look at our website, www.soundyard.org/spoken stories, and take advantage of our introductory offer. Alternatively, you can get in touch via email, hello@soundyard.org.
And if the internet isn't an option, you can leave a message with your details on our landline number. It's 01603 273 899, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can.